welcome to the video everyone. Today we will be analysing and then predicting the main event of next week's UFC pay-per-view, which is UFC 297, Sean Strickland versus Dricus Du Plessis. Now, this fight has actually got a lot of hype around it. Obviously, Sean Strickland has blown up significantly over the last year or two. He is a big star fighter now. He's one of the biggest stars in the UFC at the moment after beating Israel Adesanya in an absolutely amazing performance that if you go back and look at my video, I did predict he would win that one by decision. And against Dricus Du Plessis, who is also one of the biggest stars of middleweight, coming off an amazing performance against Robert Whittaker. Now, I'm going to talk through basically every aspect of this fight. We're going to analyse both men's physicalities, their skills, their weaknesses, and everything else that could basically have an impact on this fight, because we're leaving nothing for chance, because I want to have an accurate and detailed prediction and breakdown. And yeah, without further ado, let's get right into it. If you enjoy this kind of content, let me know in the comments and subscribe. Let's get into this. So obviously the champion we're going to start with, Sean Strickland. This is his first time defending the belt. He's a very, very slight favourite, and he's 32. He's nearly 33, so I'd say he's in his prime. This is prime years for a middleweight. 33 is still prime, well, nearly 33. And for a middleweight, he isn't the biggest middleweight, but he's not a small middleweight either. You know what I mean? He's not Robert Whittaker size. He's bigger than him. So I'm not worried about size in this for him. He stands at 6'1". He is actually 6'1". He's tall, and his reach is 76 inches, which is about normal for a middleweight. Now, moving on with Dricus. Now, he's the underdog. He's South African, and he's a little bit younger. He's only 2 years younger. So age is not a factor in this fight. There's virtually nothing between them. They're both in their primes. Maybe Dricus will improve more because he's younger, but it just depends how they're training and stuff and the quality of their opponents. And to be honest, if I just scroll on a little bit here, you can see that Sean Strickland trains at Extreme Couture, much higher level than Team CIT, with Dricus training in South Africa. The fact of the matter is, Extreme Couture is a very good gym, and they have a lot of good big fighters. Now, Team CIT, I'm not sure, I don't know their exact roster, but I do know that they don't have as many good people. And if you want me to name names on Extreme Couture, people I know that do train there, not that always train there, but people who have been there and training. I know Sean Strickland has trained with Ankalaev before, and I think that's an amazing training partner because he's bigger and stronger than Strickland, and he's got amazing wrestling. And it makes me feel like if he's training with him, someone who is just actually has an actual advantage over him in wrestling, not only in skill but also in pure size, because Ankalaev's a big dude, that Dricus isn't really going to take him by surprise. I'm not going to say Dricus isn't going to beat him in the wrestling, but he isn't going to be like, oh my god, like, what am I in for? I didn't realise how legit this guy is, because he's been up against a guy that is literally, Dricus is not better than Ankalaev at wrestling, so just because of size and skill. So there's that. And also, Sean Strickland has trained with other people who are legit the same weight. We know he's trained with Chimaev, okay? We know that. We've seen video footage of that. However, the worrying thing is, he did kind of insinuate he got tapped by Chimaev, which isn't great. However, that was at least a year ago, and Sean Strickland has improved since then. So who knows? But, you know, Chimaev is actually very dangerous in the first round, but after that, we do know he does slow. So it was probably fresh cardio Chimaev. Anyway, we move on. Dricus is 6'1". Height-wise, virtually nothing between them. They both seem about that 6 foot mark. And reach, apparently identical, so there's nothing there. However, I think Dricus isn't as tall as that says. I think he's maybe like 6 foot 5'11", and he's a really strong looking guy. You know, he's got big arms, big shoulders. He's very muscular. Sean Strickland's more, he looks like he's got more of a like runner's body, kind of like I know he's not super thin, but he's got like the cardio build, and Dricus has like the power build. So obviously we know that Dricus has cardio issues, and I know you're going to comment he has a nose problem, and while granted, you know, he looked pretty good cardio wise in his last fight, it wasn't an extremely high paced fight, okay? So I don't think you can look too much into that, because obviously he's going to be like, oh yeah, my cardio is way better now. he's not going to slag his own cardio off and say it's terrible. But we do know that Strickland has God tier cardio. He has got S tier cardio. If I did a tier list, he would be an S tier on cardio right now. He doesn't tire after 5 rounds. Dricus after 5 rounds, I can only imagine how terrible he would be. So if this fight goes late, Dricus is in heaps of trouble. Rounds 4 and 5, I can't see Dricus winning them. Even if he won 1, 2, and 3, 10-8s, I'd be surprised if he won 4. And definitely, I don't think Dricus will ever win round 5 if this fight ends up there. Just because I just don't think Dricus has the cardio to be competitive in the 5th round of this fight. Moving on, we have to look at their resumes. So, you've lost me. Hang on. Sorry about that, guys. Moving on, we have to look at their resumes. So let's have a look at Dricus first. So he's 20-2. Both his losses are outside the UFC, and if we look down here, we'll just look at his last few fights. So obviously, as you can see there, he has a few okay wins. He's beat Robert Whittaker. That is undoubtedly his strongest win. It's a really good win because a lot of people viewed Robert Whittaker as the guy that was just basically the Max Holloway of middleweight, in the fact that, you know, he would never lose to anyone and he'd constantly get title shot after title shot, and maybe one he would eventually win. Turns out that isn't the case. Because Robert Whittaker's biggest weakness, his lack of chin, got exposed heavily. He took a pretty strong jab to the face and it sat him down, and he has pretty poor recovery. And even though, you know, Dricus gave him breathing space, he gave him 5 seconds to recover, but Whittaker just wasn't there. That jab really took the life out of him. He found the finish. Whittaker didn't really have much for him after he got hit by that jab, and I think his heart wasn't in it. After that power landed and his chin cracked, I just think he just basically gave up on the feet, and he was already wobbled and hurt and he just couldn't stop it. So yeah, we do know that Robert Whittaker has a complete, absolute lack of chin, and when you combine that against someone with Dricus's power, it's always bad news. Derek Brunson, I don't rate at all. I don't think he's a very good win, but he did finish him, which is kind of impressive. But again, he didn't look amazing in that fight. He was sloppy. It wasn't very skilled. He got hurt. You know, he was getting hit too. It wasn't extremely one-sided until towards near the finish. And I mean, this is a bit of a trend in Dricus's fights, you know. You look at the Darren Till fight, you know, he actually looked like he was about to get finished at some points in that fight. It looked like Darren Till was like basically building momentum and was going to like land a big punch at some point, and Dricus looked gassed and tired after failing to put him away early. And the Brad Tavares fight, it was too close, you know. So he failed to finish him, and you should be putting Brad Tavares again away if you're going for the belt. So worrying for me, though, these 3 here, the Robert Whittaker one's a good win, but these 3 here, these are red flags to me. I don't think they're very trustable performances. You know, you look at Adesanya, you know you're usually going to get a trustable performance. In his rise to champion, he had good performances. Now, granted, he has had sloppy performances, but you could see a trend that he was disposing people who weren't as good as him, and he would show you why he's better than them. Here, sometimes who's better than who is hard to see. You know, Darren Till had good moments against Dricus. Like, you know, Izzy's opponents, they had few and far between good moments against him. Derek Brunson did not have a good moment against Izzy. He had moments against Dricus. Granted, he got finished, but Izzy finished him much more comfortably in a much better performance. And also, I would like to add, that was a younger, healthier, fitter Derek Brunson. This Derek Brunson, he was already flirting with the idea of retirement, and he's taken lots of damage. He'd just come off a finish he'd just been finished by Jared Cannonier, if I'm not mistaken. So taking damage, old. I think he was 36 when this fight came around. So yeah, not an amazing performance at all. And then obviously these are his earlier fights. He's got finishes there. You know, he's known for his guillotine in his early level, because obviously it's easier to catch people with guillotines in the amateur leagues because their jiu-jitsu is worse. and they're doing sloppy takedowns with their head on the side and leaving their chin exposed. And, this is kind of a trend you can see. I mean, see here, he's got a lot of rear nakeds. This would primarily be the fact of, I'm pretty sure some of these are at a welterweight, and obviously his opponents have no jiu-jitsu, so his strength is enough to overpower them, take the back and sub them. Like you can see here, he's getting a lot of early submissions, and this just seemed to be his bread and butter. But as you're fighting more and more talented people, they're just going to actually start to be able to defend takedowns and wrestle you. And then, we get here and he's having to put people away with punches. He got finished there by Roberto Soldic. He's only lost twice. His other finish was early on in his career where he got guillotined, ironically. And he probably learned how useful the guillotine is when you're sloppy and terrible. And that was in round 3. So obviously Dricus, I haven't actually seen that fight, but if I had to guess, it'd be a sloppy takedown entry because he was gassed in round 3 and had absolutely no energy to get himself out of the sticky situation. But yeah, so now we know a bit about Dricus. Let's take a look at Sean. Now Sean has a really good resume. He's only lost 5 times, and his caliber of opponent has been better than Dricus's. Okay. He's been in the UFC longer. That's the primary reason why. He's got a very good record. This is a better record than Conor McGregor and Tony Ferguson. It was roughly the same as Tony Ferguson's before his fall off. And I think it's roughly similar to Max Holloway's. I think Max Holloway might be like, I don't know his record. I think he's lost 4 or 3 times, maybe 5 times. But yeah, so there you go. I mean, look at that. Jack Hermansson win. Lost to Cannonier, but again, he still was good, and I don't even know if he lost that fight. I think he kind of got robbed there, to be honest. I think the UFC weren't a huge fan of Strickland getting further, and they gave it to Jared, but I think you could have said he won that fight. Nassourdine Imavov, again, close fight, but short notice, so we're not going to read too much into it, and beating someone like that on short notice is impressive. No camp, and you beat Imavov, who's a top-ranked guy. I think Dricus would struggle with Imavov, Not saying he would lose to him, but I'm just saying that, Dricus, Imavov is better than Brad Tavares, so, and he's better than Derek Brunson, so yeah. Now, he put away Abbas. Now, this is a very impressive performance. Now, in my opinion, Sean, in these 2 fights, has greatly improved, okay? I think we see after the Alex Pereira loss, which I'm going to get to in a second, I think we see an improved Sean. I know he lost to Jared, but Jared's got a granite chin. He's kind of hard to put away, and he's got good cardio, so it is quite a tough stylistic matchup for him. And also he will brawl, and obviously he's got a good chin, so it's hard to put him away. However, I really think here we see, particularly after these fights, we see the new Strickland. And what do I mean by that? Constant pressure, but not only constant, he tries to finish you, because against Hermansson, I feel like he was happy with, he's like, I'm getting paid, I don't care, who cares if I finish this guy or not, because sometimes the urgency just wasn't there. However, in the fight against Abbas, particularly, he recognised that Abbas was gassed. In that second round, Abbas did not want to be in that cage. Anyone could tell it from a mile away, and he put the pressure on and folded Abbas like a deck chair. He just wilted completely, gassed so hard, and he put in a clinic in the second round and basically took Abbas's soul from him in that fight. And he basically ended any chance of Abbas's career getting anywhere in the top 15 forever, and took his soul with immense pressure, and he basically just outboxed him. It all came back down to the boxing, and Strickland actually does have S-tier boxing. I'm not kidding when I say that. That is not a joke. And the Adesanya win, it just came down to the boxing. Adesanya's boxing isn't actually as good as people say. It's only about B-tier. His boxing is his sloppiest part of his stand-up game. He's a bit of a kickboxing merchant, where when you close the distance, you actually have more success with him. Obviously, he'd lose in it. In pure kickboxing, he's better than Sean, but Sean didn't really have to care because he just threw teeps to the body, and he checked the leg kicks, which was clearly something that Adesanya was banking on to use against Strickland, but Strickland just checked them all. He'd clearly been training it in Couture because of his great coach, Eric Nixick, and it meant that he could keep his hands by his head, so he wouldn't have to worry about catching kicks and stuff, and therefore he couldn't get baited and head kick finished by Adesanya, which I think was his plan. And he kind of said that after the fight. He was like, oh yeah, his coach basically made sure he didn't get finished by me with a head kick. And then obviously, we've got the upcoming bout, but like I said, this win in particular is the new Strickland, these 2 wins here, because it shows aggression like we've never seen before, and good cardio, and like I said, S tier / God tier boxing. And I feel like someone, pressuring people is scary, okay? Pressuring Adesanya is scary because we've seen what he can do when you pressure him. He's very good on the counter. Like Pereira would know, he got slept by him. Like Whitaker would know. All these people that have come lunging in, they end up getting finished, okay? Whereas Strickland's Philly shell and his superior boxing allows him to successfully close down opponents, and his god tier cardio, and basically push them against the cage, outbox them. They eventually wilt and he wins, okay? And you can see by the 5th round, Adesanya knew he wasn't going to win that fight. He was getting outboxed and he had nothing left. He had no tools, he had no fancy tricks left, no tools left, and he wilted and he lost. Abbas wilted and got finished because his boxing was that much worse and he just couldn't defend himself anymore. He was just getting absolutely lit up on the feet and caved in. And I think no one's pressured Dricus like Sean will. Now, that is why my pick is Sean, because Dricus is very dangerous if you let him play his game. A lot of people let Dricus come in, rush in, and that's kind of like what Robert Whitaker did. I think he gave him too much space, and he kind of let Dricus compose himself. I think if you really put the mustard on Dricus, he wouldn't be used to it because he's big and scary, and he's always had the power advantage against lower skilled dudes, or even dudes that have similar skill. He thinks, well, punch or punch, we're roughly the same in skill, but I know I'm stronger than him and I'm tough. So if we both punch each other, the chances he'll fall down to the ground, I won't. So I'll probably win the fight. Whereas Sean isn't going to want to play that game. He isn't a big brawler. He doesn't like to brawl. Does he have a bad chin? No, but he can be finished. He hasn't got an invincibility chin. We've seen that in the Pereira fight. He got dropped by a well-placed hook. However, Pereira does hit extremely hard, and it was basically the perfect left hook. It will be a highlight reel forever. But like I said, I think Sean's just going to walk him down, and Dricus is going to charge in. So I think that's what this fight's going to be. I think this fight's going to be pretty similar to Robert Whitaker versus Israel Adesanya in the first fight. Obviously, Strickland doesn't really fight like Adesanya, but I just think he's going to dart in and out. That's basically Dricus' strategy, and I think he will try and wrestle Strickland. However, I think the wrestling isn't going to be a good idea for Dricus, because I can see him gassing extremely quickly if he does try and wrestle. Because if you look at his previous fights that we've just been looking at, the ones where he gassed the most all involve grappling. Okay, the Till one and the Brunson one had heavy grappling sequences, and his most, out of his last 3 fights, the one where he looks the least gassed by round 2 is the one where he had very minimal grappling, with about 20 seconds of grappling at the end of round 1 against Whitaker. So, a trend there is that in physically intensive things, although he's strong, granted, he's stronger than Strickland, I can imagine, he gasses, okay? He gasses, it's undeniable. And I know he's had no surgery, but he didn't look, he still looked tired against Whitaker in the second round. You could see him panning after the finish. So, that is why I'm seeing that Sean's pressure that he's had so much success with recently, I just think it's going to be too much. I really do. I think it's going to be too much for Dricus and his cardio. And the bottom line is Dricus is kind of sloppy, okay? Much more sloppy than Strickland. His fundamentals are not as good. Granted, he has more power. He's more dangerous in the first round and the first 2 rounds. I don't think Strickland isn't going to go out here for a first round knockout. He'll take it if the opportunity arises, but he's going to play it safe because he knows that in round 4 and 5, if he's still in the fight, they're his rounds to win basically for free, because Dricus will be weak, he will be compromised, and he'll basically be a punching bag. Now, if this fight goes late, and they're still both there, and there hasn't been some crazy 10-8 with mad injury. Sean Strickland to find a finish would not be unlikely, because although Dricus is tough, we've seen him look like he's like a few exercises away from fainting and collapsing on the floor at the end of round 3. So imagine him in a championship fight with all the adrenaline. This is my big day, the adrenaline drum at round 5. I can imagine him so tired. I think his body just may give in, with the pressure, and we could see like a late finish from Strickland. But Strickland to win by decision is also very probable in my opinion. However, I am not writing Dricus Du Plessis off in any means. He's dangerous, particularly in the first 2 rounds. That's when I'd give him the most chance to win this. I mean, obviously that's a fairly obvious thing to say, but the only concern I have with Sean Strickland being my prediction is that I am slightly worried to see how he deals with straight punches down the middle, because his last fight was Adesanya, who is very, very anti, I'm going to dive in straight punches down the middle. They're basically opposite stylistic matchups. So if he comes in here like with the Adesanya mindset, I can see this going wrong, because I can see him getting knocked out flat by Dricus charging in and like over swinging his punches and knocking Sean out. However, if he just like his coach draws it into him correctly, like forget everything you did in your last fight, new slate for the new fighter, and they're gonna drill in that as long as Sean doesn't move his head back for punches and he moves them to the side, I think he will win this. Because like I said, Dricus overswings, he's sloppy, and he actually does have a pretty lucky tendency, I guess you could say, if you want to call it that, of overswinging and connecting with people leaning back because he overswings that much and ending up finding a knockout. However, Sean has good head movement, so I am trusting he will move his head to the side and not backwards, because he could very easily get caught by a overthrown shot from Dricus, which would be very bad for him, because Dricus on top of you in grappling is bad, because the guy is vicious ground and pound, and it's definitely where he's at his most dangerous. However, I just don't know if he's going to shoot. I don't know, it's very risky for Dricus, because if you shoot in the early rounds and it gets stuffed and you end up in bottom as a guy like Dricus, you're going to lose the round, and those are the rounds you want to win as Dricus. And he's probably going to try and get up, okay? And Dricus, getting up, he's heavy. He's going to have a heavy dude on top of him. And Sean's not going to make it easy for him. It's probably going to mean that he's going to have to use a lot of energy. So, very risky. I think if Dricus shoots, he's actually going to make it worse for himself, unless he does it in the clinch and he tries a trip. But if he shoots on Strickland and he doesn't get it, he's in worlds of trouble. If Strickland stops and gets him to the ground, I see virtually no world in which Dricus wins that fight after that. I think that basically rules the end of the fight, because Sean will have won the first or second round whenever it happens, and he'll have hurt you if he's in like top mount, a good position, raining down big punches, or if Dricus has tried to get up for a minute and 2 minutes and just managed it before the end of the round where he could hardly do anything, because he's thrown around the round these are his easiest rounds to win, judging off his personality as a fighter, and he's used a lot of energy and his cardio problem. So my prediction is Strickland to win. I can't decide whether to take a round 4 or 5 finish, or decision, but I think I'm gonna go for a round 5 finish. I really do see it. I don't even know if he's ever been to the 5th round in his entire life. So, sorry, I'm looking at Sean here. I don't know if Dricus has even been to the 5th round in his life, and this is not a person you want to be going to the 5th round against, Sean Strickland, because he will not tire. He has just as much pressure in the last 30 seconds of the fight as he does in the opening 30. So scary for Dricus if that happens. My pick, Sean Strickland by late finish. Wouldn't be surprised if this goes to a decision. I'd say probably round 5 finish, round 4 finish. I think the punches will be too much. Dricus will be exhausted leaning on the cage. He's going to get a 1-2 to the face, fall over, and he'll get finished against the side of the face, like on his side. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if this is like a 4-1 win for Sean Strickland. Or I wouldn't be surprised if Sean gets finished. I wouldn't. We've seen a guillotine and stuff. Having said that, I do think Sean's got very good grappling. I just don't think he uses it. But yeah. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that prediction. Let me know what you think about this matchup in the comments. And yeah, subscribe so you don't miss any future content. And I'll see you guys.